Good afternoon, everyone. Today is another great day for a Security Week webinar. We are all aware that organizations have exposures, but today we're going to be asking a more pointed question. In an era where AI has the ability to convert a vulnerability into working exploit in hours, if not minutes, can you actually prove which ones matter and prove it fast enough? I want to introduce you to our guest for today, Dr. Suleyman from Picus, co-founder, and Dan Sorensen from founder and principal for Nexus Security Advisors. So welcome today to the webinar, gentlemen. I just wanted to take a first couple of seconds here as part of this webinar and let you both introduce yourself with a little bit more background. So Dr. Suleyman, I will go ahead and hand it over to you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Suleyman Ozarslan. I'm one of the co-founders of Picus, and I run Picus Labs, our threat research team. And I started in academia, actually, with a PhD in cybersecurity, and I spent some years training cyber defense for NATO. So I am a researcher at heart, and as an ex-pen tester, I like to take the tricks attackers use and turn them into something defenders can test. And we have been doing this at Picus for 13 years, actually, long before AI made it the hot topic, of course. And that is exactly what I'm here to talk about today. Thank you.
Thank you. Dan Sorensen, we'll go ahead and hand it over to you, sir.
Outstanding. Really appreciate that. For the most part, I really feel privileged to be here as a founding and principal of Nexus Security Advisors. I'm a fractional VCISO, so a Chief Information Security Officer, virtual. So I like to help out small, medium-sized businesses with cybersecurity and AI governance consultancy. So regulating some of these startups, critical infrastructure organizations with my background of over 20, really more like 23 years of experience in the United States Air Force and Air National Guard, working in cyber operations, bringing kind of firsthand experience from doing incident response and organizational risk management. So I have a vast background, different certifications, including some from SANS, such as the Advanced Smartphone Forensics, Cyber Leadership, Incident Handler, Security Essentials, CompTIA Sec Plus, Pentest Plus, Network Vulnerability Assessment Professional. And along with that, I've worked in giving a webinar at NATO, and one of the lead instructors for the Cybersecurity Forum Initiative, specifically focusing on cyber threat intelligence. So I've done a number of different things, working from cybersecurity and artificial intelligence, mainly on the machine learning and looking towards how do you safeguard it with the OWASP AI Exchange project. I've published a couple books here on the AI mindset, as well as recently another one with advanced cyber threat intelligence and hunting. And I'm working on my PhD as a candidate for Capital Tech on the incident response return investment in aerospace and critical infrastructure organizations. So I'm happy to be here, and I believe we both bring a lot to the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Yeah, Dan, with that background, sounds like you've experienced a lot. And so I'm just curious, would you take a moment and just walk us through a week, like a week that you've seen, something that's landed on your plate in the vulnerability management sector? So like a normal week, exposures, vulnerability management, like what do you guys see?
Very good question. So one of the key things we see from a week-to-week basis is coming into organization, and we kind of try to ask for like a snapshot. So we look at the CVEs, common vulnerability enumeration, look at what are the weaknesses and choke points, either in third parties connecting or in different companies, organizations that realistically kind of have that common issue of they think they need more tools or they need more people to fix some of the issues. And the reality is it's not always just getting more tools or more people. It's rather prioritizing. And sometimes you knock out a couple of those vulnerabilities and you're like, great, okay, instead of 200, it's 150. And then all of a sudden the environment changes, and now it's back up to 200 or 250. And so it's a constant battle we see coming in, assessing different companies and organizations in order to be able to stay on top of the everlasting and ongoing breaches that can be occurring and the threats against that.
And that's great. So there's a lot, right? As we know, with vulnerability scanners, and those scanners and other things actually yield scores, maybe even a pen test, you get the results from that. So where does that leave you, like when you're actually discussing with the board? So like they say, hey, are you secure? You know, do you leverage those dashboards, the numbers? How do you actually provide that information to the board about, are you secure?
Yeah, the way I like to put it is that a company or organization is only as secure as the person who designed it and developed it. So ideally, we can continually evolve and improve upon that. But the word secure, it's not a 1 or 0. It's not a on or off. It's not a quick and easy answer, right? So one of the difficulties is how do we stay abreast in that? So part of what I like to bring to the table, to the board, is looking at the peer companies, organizations, the competition, and saying, hey, these other competition, these other organizations and companies might be using XYZ technology or tradecraft or sharing of information, as well as maybe even having some issues themselves. Hey, this company was hacked. You don't want to be like them, so let's change something up, right? And so that's one of the key aspects. When you go to the board, they want to see the bottom line up front. They want to see the bigger picture, not understanding CVE 2025, X, whatever it is. They want to say, how does this affect my return on investment? And a lot of times it's very difficult for the program managers and the engineers to be able to give that response for the board that they need.
Yeah, with that, Dan, you know, with that being said, that difficulty, like you said, having that conversation with the board, and this really hurts, right? Us as cybersecurity professionals is, hey, you say this is really important, you know, with the score or something like that, and then it turns out not so much, and then it's sort of like that, you know, oh, the egg on the face situation. Can you tell us an instance that may have happened with you?
Oh, very much. There is a company that gave me a call a couple weeks ago, and they said, hey, we had intrusion. We need your support. And the board was very intrigued on wanting to know what's going on. So we came on site with the team, started working right away. And one of the key aspects was it wasn't just, okay, we want bigger picture. They wanted very granular detail of what's going on, the how many minutes, how many hours does it take? And working that step by step, it's not a quick or easy process, especially sometimes from an outside company coming in to help support without a big infrastructure and a cybersecurity team, right? Some of these smaller companies don't have that infrastructure. And so it's very important for us to be able to come on site quickly, triage and remediate, and then come back and give some of those reports to the board. And with AI coming at and attacking a lot of these companies and organizations, they're very keen on attacking specific aspects of a company. It's not generalized anymore. It's very specific to that company and organization. And so it's harder for us as individual humans to be able to combat that. All the more reason we need artificial intelligence on the defensive side to be able to help out in that.
Yeah, Dan, it's true. You know, it's AI has definitely changed it up, that technology that comes with AI. And you've explained that pretty well. You know, there's a big difference in the last couple of years, those conversations occurring at the board. So I want to shift over to Dr. Suleyman here. You co-founded Picus years ago. I think you said 2013, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. So a lot of the things that you've done with Picus, it sounds like you sort of had that foresight, right? Like, so what did you see coming that made you build the company around validation?
Okay. Let me be honest with you. Actually, the AI part, exploits landing in hours. We did not predict that 10 years ago. I won't pretend I did it. But we did see the problem under it, actually. And that problem is exactly what we built Picus on. Here is what bothered me from the start. Every security team buys controls, organizations spend $1 million for firewalls, EDR, SIEMs, WAFs, and then they assume it all works. And they assume the detection rule fires in SIEM or EDR, or they assume the config holes in IPS. And they hack products actually very well, but owning a control and knowing it works are two different things. Without checking the second one. So if defenses were graded on whether they deployed or not on whether they really stop an attack, but that's important. So that felt wrong to us. Actually, the attacker does not care what you bought, what your security controls are. They care what really blocks them. So the only honest question in security was never are we patched or are we covered. It was this. But at current threat landscape, when a real attack lands, does our defense hold? That's the question. And can we prove it? And that question never gets old. It was true before anyone said the word AI, and it is the only question that matters now, of course. And so we built the company around one idea: validation. You run real attacker behavior, real TTPs against your own live defenses again and again, continuously. And we think it works because we know it works on evidence, not on a guess. And of course, with the AI, you can see the three different graphs here. So why did this matter less back then or so much now? Actually, the answer is the one word: speed. Because with the help of AI, exploitation took hours, not weeks at the moment. So previously, before AI, you could relax a little before vulnerability discovery and exploitation, and you can check once in a while, quarterly pentest, yearly pentest, etc. But now AI cuts the time from disclosure to exploit down to hours. You can see the second graph, it's currently 10 hours only. So, and in the left graph, you can see this is vulnerabilities found by cloud, and only 1% of them patched. So AI just make the cost of getting it wrong very, very high. So this is validation getting more important at the moment. And there is one more thing maybe we saw early: proving something, insecurity alone is not the finish line. Anyone can tell you that you are not secure. So what? The value starts after the proof, actually. You validate, then you prioritize, then you fix, and then you validate again to confirm the gap is really closed. So the answer is that full loop, and this is a program, actually, not a product. It may be a program or framework. These three graphs shows as maybe a scary numbers, but using fundamentals, using validation, actually we can defend against AI. Also using AI, of course. So that's my honest answer. So I did not predict AI. I just believed that running security on assumptions was dangerous, and we built validation to replace the assumption with evidence, and AI made this bet pay off faster and harder than I ever wanted it to, of course.
Yeah, thank you for that. So an interesting part is with all this, we had a comment in the chat, and I just want to sort of tie this in here, is that, a gentleman was like, hey, how are we going to eventually leverage AI to help patching? And you mentioned this, right? So that's a very difficult thing with the amount of different devices, right? Configuration, depending on your configuration management, all of those things. So from what you're describing is Picus is helping the patch management by saying, hey, like this is the one with your enterprise and your organization that you need to focus on and do now, instead of just trying to patch everything. And that consumes a lot of the resources, as you said, the people, the time, all of those things. So I just want to transition over here and ask Dan. So Dan, right, you mentioned this earlier. You said, you know, we have all this going on. We talked to leadership. What do they want to do? They just want to throw more people, more tools. Like, what have you seen? You described a little bit, but I want you to go a little deeper. Like, why doesn't that close the gap? I just want to add more and more people and tools. Why does that not close the gap?
Perfect question. One of the key aspects, and I think it kind of goes to how can we leverage AI for patching? I'd say it's in three aspects. First one is prioritization. How do we know what is more important? Sometimes there's a prioritization based upon your CVSS, the scale, but also it might be different based upon your organization. We might have certain aspects that can be in a developmental stage, and with some of the tools, we can fine tune AI so that it can actually look at our environment and say, hey, this is on the side, it's not connected to the internet. So we're going to prioritize that maybe a little bit lower. And so just having more people doesn't fix the problem of knowing how to prioritize what's more important. It's the knowledge, it's the experience with the network, et cetera. The second aspect I'd say is the impact prediction. So before you can patch anything, you got to know, hey, is this going to change my environment? You know, an AI model can also go in, do some patch touches and look at some legacy apps to see what break it. Do we need to test it? How much testing do we need? Obviously, it's not perfect, but it's better than just guessing, right? So it's not just throwing things out there, but you can actually test smarter and not longer. And then the third one is validation of the patches. So after you deploy some of the patches, the AI-driven testing can prove that the patch actually works. So the controls are holding. And that's one of the key aspects is when you do a pen test, typically it's a one-time, a snapshot in time. Did the patch actually stop the vulnerability? Well, did it create a new one? Did it start again? We have to do another pen test. We have to do another, remediation sometimes. So, our EDR or IPS, intrusion protection or detection system, can still, look at how these techniques come up. But, patching is change management, and our environments typically are always changing. So AI can tell you what to patch, and, somewhat even validate whether it worked or not. But you still almost always need that human-approved testing, the window, a rollback plan, et cetera. And so oftentimes it's not doing things with more tools or more people, but it's ensuring your people who are working it are well knowledgeable and educated on the environment, the scenario, and what the company organization is doing. So, AI can get, give you some support, but it's not going to get around your operational risk. So hopefully that can kind of make sense there, right?
Yeah, for sure, Dan. Yeah, it's interesting. I've been in environments where, like you said, you hit it, and not even necessarily the developmental test, but you do a patch and then all of a sudden something's not working, right? And so being able to patch and actually put that in a developmental environment first to test the functionality and make sure that that patch is not going to mess things up, if you will, integration, the configuration of certain just actually, it could be a server or it could be an embedded system that's attached to a server. Any kind of interaction is very important. So it'd be great if AI was like, hey, go out and just patch everything. I would be a little bit fearful of that. I think people have seen that anyways, just from a manual perspective. And so there is that validation and that prioritization, especially if you have that environment where you can go test things out first. So, one of the things that we talk about too in doing testing is actually have an environment where you can do pen testing. You stated a little bit earlier that, hey, that's sort of a static snapshot in time. And now people are looking at trying to do continuous pen testing, right? Whether that's continuing pen testing the AI LLM, which is a big deal and that's new, or just continually pen testing their enterprise environment. But Dr. Suleyman, I'm just curious. So why is automating the pen test not necessarily holistically sufficient?
Yeah, good question. Yes, automated pen testing got faster, and actually that is good. I want to be clear first. We are not against it. In fact, we have our own autonomous pen testing product right inside our platform. We built one because we believe in it, and organizations need it. But even as the people who make one, I will tell you the truth, because faster is not same as sufficient. Here is why. A pen test can only do two things. First, it tests the assets it can reach. I'm an ex-pen tester, so I can be honest. And the second one, it fires only what it can safely exploit. You don't want to give blue screen for, tested assets. So that sounds fine, because these limitations are well known. But look at what it leaves out. Let me show you a slide. Yeah. The first number on this slide, about 68% of the attack surface never gets tested with pen test, manual or automated pen testing, because it is beyond the reach of pen testing. So picture your environment as a house, and a pen test walk up to maybe a third of the doors. The other 2/3, it never reaches. It's not lazy, but it simply cannot get there. Let's think about which assets does it skip? Not the small ones. It skips your most important systems, because the business critical systems, the restricted systems, they are excluded in even a manual pen test. So in automated pen test, you cannot be sure that there is a problem in your some important production system. So you exclude these systems from the automated pen test also. So these restricted or important systems, you cannot touch them with automated pen testing. So the systems that matter most are exactly the ones the pen test cannot see. So the risk doesn't go away. It hides in place you care about the most, actually. Now, the second number, 1 in 3 non-ransomware CVs, it's a new research, according to new Wuncheck research. 1 in 3 non-ransomware CVs from last year still had no exploit to fire as of January this year. So for a tool that only trusts an attack it can run, no exploit yet means no result. So it stays silent. But the vulnerability is still there. So you need to test it. You need to test whether you are secure against this vulnerability or not. Think about brand new CVs with no exploit today, but attackers can weaponize tomorrow. So the newest, freshest danger is the one pen testing quietest about mostly. And so you see the pattern. A pen test goes dark in two places: on the assets it cannot reach, and on the vulnerabilities it cannot yet exploit. So both of those are exactly where the risk now concentrates, your crown jewels actually, and the newest series. And that's not a small corner of the problem, that's the center of it. And the third number makes it final. Only 0.5% of CVs ever get weaponized in last year. So if exploitation is the only signal you measure with automated pen testing, you are watching a tiny slice and calling it the whole picture. But it's not. You feel safe because the pen test came back green, but green only means nothing I could reach and exploit fired. So it does not mean you are totally secure. So that is why I say it this way. Automated pen testing is necessary. Of course, you truly need it. We even built our own, but it is not sufficient. It answers one question well. Can I break in right now on the assets I can reach with an exploit I already have? Good question, but it's just one question. The real question is bigger. The real question is across my whole environment, including the parts a pen test cannot reach and the brand new threats with no exploit yet, where am I actually exposed? What is genial, actually blocked my controls and what is not? So this is how we built our platform. We do not stop at the pen test. We start there. Our own pentesting product is one engine inside it. Then we add security control validation. We add exposure validation. And for the assets and CVs that cannot be safely exploited, we validate them by inference against your real security controls, and we turn the dark spots into evidence. So a pen test tells where it got in, but we tell you where you are exposed also. Those are not the same thing. And in this new world, the gap is exactly where the real danger lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, you know, the big thing is, right, I think the term is called compliance theater or security theater is, you know, like you said, you have all the green check marks, and it's great you met the compliance for that instance, even the snapshot in time, and even to the point potentially with that continuous, right, that pen testing. But, you know, a lot of the board members are like, okay, that's great from the dashboard, like we just talked about. But at the end of the day, they want to know that their systems are secure, and not only that, but their intellectual property and their crown jewels. That's the, right, at the end of the day, the secure engineering aspect of that. That's what they want to make sure that's good. And again, you have to validate. They don't want to just throw resources, because they're also trying to make money at the end of the day and do their ROI, right, from a business perspective. So Dan, you know, part of that is measurement, right? And so if you can actually prove out exploitability and control effectiveness continuously, how does that actually like change how you run the program, like the program at large? And not only that, how do you now speak to the board?
Yeah, two really great questions. First one to look at is, it reminds me of something is, you know, you can't improve upon something you can't measure. So whether we're trying to lose weight and, you know, we get on the scale and we measure and say, you know, you're 200 pounds, now you're 190, now you're 180, okay, you're doing some kind of effect. The difficulty is the time frame when you're looking at some of these remediations and something continually changing is that, you know, if you go and remediate some things, but your environment changes and creates new vulnerabilities, your numbers can change. It can go down from 200 to 190, but because your environment changed, it might go up to 230. Well, how do you explain that to the board, right? And so that's where this continuous, it's almost like the CI/CD pipeline for developers, you know, continuous improvement, continuous developing. You're going to continually reevaluate where you're at. And so, you know, one of the key things is in traditional pen testing, you know, you go for, let's hope we can safely exploit this and that we don't break anything, right? But a control validation is that we've proven each defense layer stopping this, right? So we know it works because we've tested it in isolation. And so we get more evidence with less risk. So for air gap or restricted systems, it can be basically the same approach. So one of the key aspects I would say is that, you know, it takes so much time to go back and do another pen test. It could take weeks or months. And we're wanting to get more of a validation much quicker, much sooner. So we go out, we do remediation, and then we come out and we say, we're ready for our penetration test. We do the test, and then we come out and we see the results. Well, we could actually be in the process of correcting these and then get a continuous pen test and a continuous evaluation to see how the environment is changing based upon some of the smaller ones. And inclusively, one of the times about 2-3 weeks ago, I was with an organization and they prioritized some of the risk, and they said, okay, our risk is at the firewall, our risk is at our gateway, right? And they corrected a couple of those things, which innately fixed or secured more of the inner parts of the network. So that was one of the things where knowing the network and being able to do that, they could check that. So they were able to go back and review it, and they said, well, as long as the gateway is secure, then other things in line innately would be secure as well, right? Now, they also wanted to go back and secure each one of those other key aspects, but knowing where to cut that off and validate that was pretty critical in that part of the remediation. So as far as the board comes into play, we look at the critical vulnerabilities most important to the system. I call it the keys to the kingdom, right? If a hacker breaks in and, you know, goes on your DMZ, right, your demilitarized zone, something on the exterior, he may or may not get something important. But if he goes on further into the network and gets into credit card information, PII, PHI, maybe it's developmental that we don't want our adversaries or we don't want our competition to know, and somebody steals that. That might be the keys of the kingdom, that's more important. So prioritizing and knowing what that is critical. A vulnerability in one system can be somewhat of an issue, but a vulnerability in a key asset, critical infrastructure, key resource is much more important to the board. And knowing which systems could be compromised or have been compromised is key in discussing with the board there, right?
Sure. Yeah. And, it always goes back to, right, like being able to prove out, hey, we are important. I always do the analogy that like security is like insurance, right? It's like no big deal until you need it, So yeah. it's a lot of, we are part salesman. Every single cybersecurity professional out there is always part salesman in that instance. And some of the stuff that makes our job even more difficult today is the release of Mythos and Fable. And some of those things out there are causing a stir, right, in the community. So, Dr. Suleyman, are we ready? So that's the big question. But like ultimately, what does that mean? Like, what's the definition of being Mythos ready?
Okay. Yeah, actually, it is, maybe I can define Mythos readiness in a clause. Mythos readiness means you can prove today, right now, and that your defenses still work against attacks that used to take weeks but now arrive in hours. So I think it's not a clause you asked for, but I added a few comments for free. So I mean, for being a Mythos ready or Fable ready or whatever you call it, because frontier models, they are creating their new cybersecurity models in each week. We cannot, track very easily. So, and we verified by Anthropic, for example. We can use these models in our products also. So we know that they are really fasten the exploit generation and, doing hacking or breaches or attack chains very fastly and easily. So Mythos readiness is being ready in every time. So you and Dan emphasize continuity. So it's very important in Mythos readiness, and you need to be fast. Where vulnerabilities, land in 10 hours, you need to be fast than the 10 hour. This, window. So you need to validate attacker TTPs, threat groups, etc. And also you can be sure that your controls, your security controls works against these TTPs. And it's not a hard job. So you can use some validation tools like Picus to validate them. And we also use AI. We have a AI crew we call Picus Swarm, and they think like an attacker, and they do their job. In short, sorry, I'm an ex-academic, so I like talking. In short, we need to be ready, and we need to be fast as attackers. So we need to use also AI against attackers using AI.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, the fire with fire, right? Fire with fire. So, yes. so Dan, what's like? So again, vendor agnostic here, right? Vendor agnostic. What's one thing we could do? Like if we were walking tomorrow morning, what's one thing we could do? Like what's one practical step a team could take? Again, first thing in the morning tomorrow.
Yeah, I would say one of the key aspects I mentioned before is utilization, but one of the key things is looking at your defense in depth, right? And, whether we're talking about Mythos or any kind of AI coming in, agnostic of other tools, It's the exploit generation speed and the quality improves, right? AI is not hallucinating as much. It's being integrated so it's better adaptive to use cases. A new CV you can drop. AI can take maybe 30 minutes to generate a working proof of concept, but Mythos might be able to do it in 5. Fable could maybe do it in a couple seconds with some adaptive variants. So that's really material. The disclosure to work exploit, Windows just doesn't shrink. Like, it's gone, evaporates. So right now, what is it that we can do? We can look at how we're actually looking at the problem, right? So an attacker finds a working exploit, manually adapts it for different targets, different configurations, different defenses, different companies, organizations. They can do that programmatically. So whether you patch one variant or not, a model can generate different targets based upon the code and path, right? So that's not just getting a faster pen test tool. It's an autonomous adversary. And in order to combat that, we're needing more autonomous defense tools to be able to work with that, identify the threat as well as any variants and changes. So the fundamental issue in the defense still applies. So, a firewall can still stop traffic. Intrusion protection system can still detect and, look at the signature. EDR still catches behavioral anomalies. But segmentation can also contain lateral movement. So when you look at that aspect, some of the new AI techniques or tactics and things out there won't be able to make these defense in depth aspects obsolete. It just means they have to work faster and continuously.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Yeah, it's funny. I'm all about analogies, right? It's sort of like something is like very wrong with your car or your vehicle, and it's like, okay, I have like 5 or 6 things wrong. I have to take it to a mechanic so they can prioritize what needs to get fixed so I can actually make it to work the next day, right? Or take a safe ride with my family. So sorry, Dr. Suleyman, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead, Suleyman.
Yeah, I just want to say, so then we are going back to fundamentals. So defense in depth, validation. Actually, these are all well-known terms for the last 10, 20 years. So, but their importance are, more emphasizing at the moment with the AI.
Yeah, completely agree. Spot on.
Yeah, so I wanted, we're drawing close to the end here before we get to Q&A. So everybody listening, if you want, please go ahead and throw some Q&A or some questions in the Q&A box, and we'll get to those in about 1 minute or so. But I want to thank you both for coming on the webinar. All the information, of course, is valuable out to the audience. It sounds like, right, I mean, there's so many tools out there that can find the exposures, and there's a lot of different ways to do that. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to prioritizing the ones that you need to take care of. And those entities, techniques, and skills are very much what you hit home on today. So I did want to give you both the opportunity real quick just to take some time, last minute thoughts before we jump into the Q&A. So Dr. Suleyman, we'll go with you.
Yeah, you also emphasized the importance of prioritization. Actually, currently we don't have problems about finding exposures. Vulnerable scanners, app scanners, everything, cloud, Mythos, Fable, Chat, GPT, Cyber, etc. So security teams can find thousands of exposures on only asset maybe. For example, one of our customers, they have more than 20,000 something open tickets about exposures. So finding exposures is not the hard part. The important part is prioritizing the exposures, but it shouldn't be static like with severity scores like CVSS, EPSS, and others. They should be prioritized by according to your own environment. Every environment different. Everyone use different security controls, their configuration, everything is different. So prioritization should be proven in your environment. Then you can really fix what matters. These are my last words.
Okay, Dan, over to you.
Yeah. I think one of the key aspects is I like to call it the keys of the kingdom, but I think in one of the questions that kind of came out is how do you validate something you can't safely exploit, such a business critical system, right? Whether you're using AI or other tools, you got to decompose the threat into testable components. So let's say you have a critical SQL injection vulnerability affecting a core database. You can't run an exploit against the production, but maybe you could answer a couple things like, does your firewall block the attack traffic pattern? Test the firewall, rule in isolation. Does my intrusion protection system detect the malicious SQL code? Well, we can test the signature against known payloads. Does my EDR detect the exploitation technique? We can test the behavioral detection in a lab environment. So, we're asking these questions, and you can even ask, does our SIEM or SOAR solution alert and correlate the signals? Well, we can test the detection logic. So, if all 4 different one of these controls stop an attack in different layers, we can actually prove the exposure is defended. We don't always need to touch the production database, right? But we can actually check out the different layers and controls. So whether you're looking at your network, your detection, response, visibility, the end result proves that the evidence that attacker cannot successfully exploit the vulnerability in the environment specific to there, which is different than just being able to exploit a CVE, right? So documenting that process is key. So I'd say that's one of the key things we need to do. And the advancement of AI basically makes it a lot faster. We need to do it quicker. We need to be on top of our toes to know what that looks like inside our environments.
Yeah, this is what our platform, doing then. So yeah, you can decompose the CVE or exploit primitives and test security layers, and you can infer what's the result. Yeah, you framed very well. Thank you.
So I think we have time for maybe 1, if not 2 questions here. So Dr. Suleyman, so where does Picus actually fit in with like people's existing scanners and CTEM program? How does that actually fit? Does it replace them? Does it integrate? How does that work?
Okay, actually, we don't replace CTEM program. So CTEM is not a product; it's a program, you said, and we don't replace CTEM tools. And I want to be very clear about it because it's a common fear. People ask about if we replace Tenable Qualys with and other scanners, etc. No, they are very good at one thing, finding exposures, and we pull their findings from these tools, and we integrated with more than 75 tools, not only scanners, also SIEM, EDR, every security controls, ticketing tools, etc. So we are sitting in the middle of a CTEM program. So we pull data, and we pull our breach attack simulation data, autonomous pentesting data. We produce. We analyze all the data, and we give a one finding view with our exposure validation tool in our platform. So you can use Picus, of course, your CTEM program, only Picus, it's also okay. Or you can connect your tools, your scanners, and your maybe ticketing tools or your SOAR, SIEM, whether you call, and we can also feed them. So it's like an open fabric. So we are producing our own data, and you also use the data your tools already produced.
Awesome. Well, I think we are at time, gentlemen. Oh, go ahead. Last couple seconds
we don't replace scanners. Maybe I can say that we are the layer that finally makes them pay off with correction, with fixes, with accurate prioritization, etc. Sorry for interruption.
Great. Great. Thank you again, both gentlemen, for coming on today. I appreciate your time. And that is going to wrap it up for today's webinar at Security Week. Y'all take care. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Ryan. Take care. Bye-bye.